Hello, everybody. Good evening, Saturday evening. I think it's day 4. I should know, day 4 of Northampton Film Festival. Kind of a big deal. We started this film festival well in 2020, and we were going to have our first official Northampton Film Festival, and then something came up, and so we delayed to 2021. And we decided, because of the pandemic, that we were going to start Northampton Film Festival with a live streaming of a short film that we made called The Operator. The point of it being that actually lots of people have really missed out on set experience this year. And so if we can do anything, then let's live stream the pre-light and the filming of our short film, The Operator. Now, The Operator was really heavily inspired by Moon. And so we thought, why not try, even though it is, I think, 12 years since the film was made, why not try and get some of the crew together to kind of talk about how that was made, and maybe we'll compare it in a tiny little way to the short film we made as well. So we are joined this evening by the costume designer Jane Petrie, DP Gary Shaw, and gaffer Ewan Cassidy. So I'm going to bring you all in. Hopefully we've also got Tony on the way, but I think maybe he is stuck somewhere in the weird online internet-y problems of live streaming and things. So thank you very much for joining us on Saturday evening. So first of all, where should we start? Well, so I'm quite keen to kind of find out how you all got involved. Let's start maybe with kind of Jane. So how did this job kind of come across your desk?
It came to me because I've got an agent, so I was sent the script, and then I had to kind of, well, I read the script, but it was very quickly that they wanted to see me and get the interviews done. I can't remember why Duncan was in a hurry, because there was enough time, but there was a bit of a rush. Maybe he was just in London that week or something, or had to go. I can't remember what happened, but I do know that I went to meet him out at the set build, which had been started. And I loved the script, and obviously really was keen to do it. But I just remembered I had completely forgotten about this until you asked. But I went to meet him out at Shepperton, and he was really keen to show me around. And there was wet paint on the floor, and he said, "It's all right, we'll just hop over it." And we fell over, like literally fell over on the set on the wet paint, and I completely destroyed a parka that I was wearing. So I think he kind of had to give me the job. He probably felt so guilty about ruining my coat that I got the job.
Amazing. Well, I think there's a lot of things that happen like that in the film industry. So obviously then, during kind of, so relatively, I suppose, far down the line, if there was set building. So I mean, Gary, what kind of time on the timeline did you come into the job?
Realistically, probably about 2 or 3 weeks before shooting. Not very long at all.
Oh wow, okay.
But even though I'd had an agent, I had my involvement with Duncan was from commercials that I'd done with him, and it literally was a pub conversation after John Matheson said he wasn't available. So it was like, oh, I need someone to do this. Will you do it? And that was the whole interview. I'm a bit in the stuck. Can you do it? Yes, I can do it.
Amazing. Well, and then I'm assuming that so obviously had you and Ewan, that's quite hard to say after a whole day of live streams, kind of worked before and bring Ewan in. Was that the first time you'd worked together?
No, not at all. It was literally a case of the work. It's almost like it is now. There wasn't very many people available. The people I'd worked with before were all commercial guys. I hadn't done a feature, so they just came with a list of names and said, "Speak to these guys." And Ewan just seemed to be the guy that clicked. He was the right choice for me. He wasn't. He was just amenable, sociable, and sort of. He just seemed very practical. And that was our first job together, and not the last, obviously, but it was our first job together. I hadn't worked with anyone on that set before.
Wow. Okay. And so, I mean, talking about kind of challenges of I mean, I assume kind of if you say you're joining a set 2 weeks before you shoot, obviously then you've not got a huge amount of input in the set. Does that throw up quite a lot of challenges for a director of photography? I would imagine so, possibly.
Yeah, well, at the time, Duncan was still a little bit unsure about how he wanted stuff. He was kind of, at one point, going along the Alien vibe, but then when I rocked up to the set and found that the ceiling was only 8 foot above, that kind of ruled out the whole Alien vibe. It's quite hard to get lights high off the set when the set's not very high. And then we came up with a couple of ideas to do with camera traps and breaking up the colour a little bit, but we also kind of with Ewan's help, we were able, on our tiny budget, which it was at the time, to rig it in a really practical and useful way.
Okay, and in fact, I've got Tony here now, so I'm going to bring Tony in as we're talking about practicalities of set. Hello, Tony.
Hi, guys.
It's
a while.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, 12 years are we thinking, which, a lot can happen in 12 years.
Certainly can. How you doing, Gary?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Tony. You all right?
Good. Yeah, fine. And Jane, it's a
Hello.
while.
Hi, Tony. It's been a while. Lovely to see you.
Still around.
Well, we were just talking about about when people kind of came to the job. So, Tony, it sounds like maybe you were on this job a lot earlier than all of these guys.
Yeah, the way it kind of worked out was that Duncan had the idea of doing this film way before I came on board, and him and a guy called Gavin Rothery, who he was sort of friends with, they kind of wanted to make an English sci-fi picture, and they needed someone to do it, basically. And a guy called Roger Christian, who's another director, knew me and sort of said, "Give me a go." I met up with him, and it all clicked, it all worked. So from there on, we started getting the designs going, and started guys in construction starting putting the whole thing together, and it was a fairly quick, speedy thing.
Well, yeah, and I was gonna. So we've just kind of shot a film in a tiny set build of a little kind of space pod, and the director of that came with very. He was also the DP, but came with very specific ideas of what he wanted, including from an aesthetic, but also from kind of practical sense. And I was interested to know. How much did Duncan come to you with some fixed ideas about how it would look, or how open was the brief?
It was very open. We all had this idea. There were certain movies which were kind of what they were striving to go for. It was all the 60s movies, the Silent Running and the Outlands and all those sort of, very successful movies of that time. And he wanted to give it that kind of vibe. We looked at lots of stuff, looked at all the old set photographs of the sets and whatever, and threw together this kind of, the moon base from that. strangely enough, there was one. Sometimes when you're trying to get a set together, you need one little thing to set the ball rolling. And I can't remember who did it, but they came up with a particular design, which was like, it looked like a keyhole on its side. And if you look in the movie carefully, you can see this kind of strange shape. And that was what we based everything around. And I sat down with Duncan one day and we just had a great big pad of paper. And we just sat down and scribbled. And he said, I want a room here, and I want a room there, and some corridors there, and get on with it. And that was kind of really it, back Gary was saying, the big problem with a set like that is, the confinement, you're kind of locked in. And because we wanted it to be quite claustrophobic, it was small and very kind of condensed, as you suffered, Gary. Yeah. Yeah. But what was great, what always amazed me was when we put all the set together, Gary came on board, looked at it and conceived this way of hiding lights so that you just, I think I'm right saying this, Gary, yeah, that you could come in the morning and just literally turn the lights on, it was lit, ready to go. And it kind of works.
Pretty much. But thanks to the way Ewan worked it out, and we almost wired it like a house and literally did all the base. And it was down to money as well. We didn't have the budget to put proper film lighting in. So we used a hell of a lot of domestic lighting, which Ewan cleverly sort of codded together almost and made work.
And before the days of LED as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was indeed. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was gonna ask a question. Maybe this is to Ewan, but also to all of you about what was practical. What was kind of real about the set. What was that was practical, that was built in, rather than something you might have done if maybe bigger budgets or whatever in post or with other elements. We were just looking. I watched it yesterday again. And there's loads of little kind of lighting effects that obviously that they all seem. Everything seems practical.
Yeah, we pretty much did most everything practical, even down to bits and pieces of domestic equipment. In some part of it, there's one part where he's cutting through in a panel, and if you actually look carefully, it's actually IKEA knife and cutlery trays turned upside down.
That's exactly what it was. Yeah,
in a very Doctor Who kind of way.
At least it wasn't yogurt pots.
Yeah. It really was. What the hell how cheaply can we do it so that it looks good and stands up to camera? The whole thing was literally, if you find something interesting, something that, I've done it since, where you kind of look around and, the guy that did all the sort of modelers and stuff, a guy called Bill Pearson, who is sadly no longer with us. Sort of set me in on that kind of course, because he was a complete and utter nutcase who would go around skips and dump yards and finding interesting bits of plastic and come back and everything is out of his mind. But he put it all together and it was just, Jesus, this really works. And just spray a colour, done, and all the kind of, normally you would have things like plasterers and model makers and God only knows what, but Bill just went out and got old dustbin lids and everything. He was just, but kind of creative, and that was, and having, because we had 2 and 6 to do it with, it was just a case of getting what we could get and trying to make it look as good as we can, But the construction guys were great because they threw it all together, and because the guy who actually was the construction man, a guy called Gene DeCruz, put it all together for me and for the production, and really worked hard to get it all put together for the right kind of budget.
Well, and I think you've answered a few of these, but I was going to just ask everyone kind of what was the biggest challenge for their department. Maybe we'll go to Jane. What was maybe something that's quite difficult to put together?
I think that obviously budget. I remember my budget was £8,000, and then
that much.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, but it was the logic was the hardest part to kind of. I kind of got a bit stuck on some of the logic. Just I think because with sci-fi, if you blow it, you really blow it, and you can really pull the viewer out. So when Sam Rockwell arrived, and I'd pulled together some stuff in preparation of his first fitting, but he had quite a few ideas and things that he brought with him, and he wanted to use, like the T-shirt that he wears at the beginning, "Wake me when it's quitting time." He brought that with him from LA and said that he fancied using that. And I'd spoken to Duncan about the sort of period of it, and when is this, and how long has it been going on, and how many. What number? So we're arriving. We pick up the story with a character we called Sam 1. So, but how long has he been? Is he the first, or is he the 10th, or And Duncan said, I just want to be really ambiguous about that. It could be that he's been up there since the moon landings, or he could be like the first or the second, or it could be 200 years of this. And so I got really stuck on being able to use personal items. Because if you've got a cynical company giving each clone a pack of clothes, if you've got one T-shirt that's personal and separate to that uniform, it's going to be knackered if it's. How's that going to work? And I kept saying I couldn't get. And I said to Doug, this isn't going to work. We can't use these personal items and create all these different characters for all the flashbacks and all the with the Hawaiian shirt and the bits and pieces that we use, and his slippers and his tracksuit bottoms. We won't be able to use any of that if I can't find a logic for it. So then Duncan agreed that we could make, when he finds the whole kind of infinity of all the drawers, and he opens one, and the answer's there. It's on the screen really for the geeks rather than it's there if you want it. But when he opens the drawer and pulls out the clone, we made a sort of a pillow inside a plastic pack that had a replica of all those bits, so that we just said, okay, the company are cynical enough to send up all of this for each guy will get the same, and it'll have personal items that they've copied from the first guy's real personal items. So sort of things like that were really kind of slightly mind bending, but you have to get there. You have to figure out a way to get it onto the screen for it to feel like it's got any sort of you want a truth to the storytelling that people buy into, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I suppose that's what it's all about, isn't it? I mean, creating the world is kind of everything.
Yeah.
It sounds like you had many a challenge. I don't know. Was there something particularly ridiculous you were having to do, or?
No, I think for every all of us had a slightly easier time in some ways on the day of every day. I bet maybe everyone would disagree, but I think Karen, who did the makeup, had because she went from a Sam in decline to straight out the packet to a mid-range, and she was the makeup changes and the costume changes throughout the day were insane. It was easy for me. I can swap him in out of a broken down prepped garment, but I think the makeup and hair, it was really hard to do that on that budget in that schedule. From where I was backstage, that's what I was thinking. I'm really glad I'm not that department. Actually, that's horrific.
But yeah, I mean, Ewan, what did you have anything that was that particularly stood out as being ridiculously weird of wiring everything practically?
Well, at risk of repeating, it was just coping with the budget, really. We knew that we had to light an entire set, and thankfully using sort of modern florey tubes that were film friendly, and we could hide these florey tubes in every nook and cranny. Tony took a load of panels off walls for us that we could put florries behind and then put the panels back again afterwards. And doing all that, I think our budget was about £2,000. Absolutely absurd. But we did it, and because we didn't use loads and loads of tungsten lamps, the electricity bill was a little bit lower as well, and the heat in the studio was a lot lower as well.
Particularly with the fact it was so claustrophobic and was shut off and nobody could get in or get out of the place. Because that was one of the things that was Duncan was insistent on. He wanted it to be completely claustrophobic, so we had to have like one entrance in, which was shut off when we were shooting, and nobody could get in or get out, unless you were able to get the first assistant to let you out of the thing, But it was just strange, and everybody was given. Do you remember the shoes? Everybody had to wear shoes on the set.
Yeah.
Big box of the plastic shoes you had to put on so the floor didn't get messed up or whatever. Yeah.
I'm convinced it was the forerunner to the original Big Brother, to be honest. Just see if we can get 30 crew members. into a box and see if they go back.
But it kind of works. I mean, it did actually contain it. I mean, it was. The biggest, the thing that I was, the perspective set that you were talking about earlier was that was one of the funny things. I mean, you know, trying to convince Duncan to do it that way, because we had the situation with the chamber with all the you know, the chamber with all the drawers in it, and we talked about it, saying it had to be like, it had to look like it was going on for miles. And we're in a relatively small studio, and they talked about CGI and all the other. And I had just recently done a commercial for Sainsbury's or where we had to do a street, and we were once again in a small studio. So I looked up some old books and stuff, you know, film textbooks, and saw how to do perspective sets. So we did it as a perspective set. And how long was that street? It was only about sort of 20 foot long, wasn't it? It wasn't.
Yeah. The whole set was only about 20 foot long. Once you walked a good pace away from the ladder that Sam came down, which wasn't really a full ladder, but just hung off the set. You started going uphill quite quickly. Yeah,
that's right. Yes, because with the set you have to. Sorry, Gary.
So I was going to say, in the end, I think from memory, we lit the very end of it with a mag light with some ND stuck on the end of it with a bit of blue tack. We just stuck a mag
tiny little light, wasn't it? Yeah.
Tiny little thing, because everything just got smaller and smaller. And
I remember cutting all those arches out, all the little arches right there, and we're cutting out bits of cardboard and stuff, you know. Yeah. So, because from that distance, it doesn't mean anything, you know. It just looks like it goes on forever. I think it was one of Ewan's guys. We were sort of working on it over the weekend, and one of your guys came in with a kid, and he looked at it, he said, "Oh, can I go down there?" Thinking he actually thought it went on for miles, but of course it was 20 foot long, you know, whatever.
I've got a photograph of my Susie, the Spark, sort of squeezed up there, looking like Alice in Wonderland, really. Yeah.
I have one of Duncan lying in it, and he's curling because he can't get entirely in it. He's completely, you know, he's bent round. It's so short once you climb over.
It was a funny thing.
Yeah, it was great.
But it was one of those things that all worked out well, but could have gone horribly wrong. Fortunately, it didn't, you know.
Well, I mean, some of the best things I think are on that knife edge, aren't they?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, so obviously you talk about kind of, you know, really being constrained by the budget. I mean, obviously everyone would like more budget, but I mean, if you'd had a lot more budget, do you think it would have been a very different film?
I'm not so sure, really. It might have been more refined. You might have had other refinements, and we might have had more time to do it. But I think, in essence, I mean, the story was so strong anyway. And all you needed to do was have a good situation to put it into. I mean, and Sam Rockwell, of course. Yeah. We mustn't forget Sam Rockwell, who was brilliant in it. Can someone tell me why he didn't get nominated for something for that movie? Because I don't understand it.
Honestly, don't know. No, honestly, don't know. But at least he's won something now, at least.
What, sorry?
At least he's won an Oscar now.
Yeah, but sure, bless us.
He should have been definitely up for at least a BAFTA for that, at least.
Yeah.
But there you go. It was a standalone piece. I just to go back to your question, I think it probably wouldn't have been the same film, to be honest. And I think it wouldn't have been the same film if it hadn't been the same crew. I think if you've got the right crew and you've got a small amount of gear, you can achieve a hell of a lot. And sometimes when you're forced to achieve a hell of a lot with little amount of gear, it's actually more fulfilling sometimes. I think if you're luxuriating in equipment,
that's true.
over-egg things.
Yeah, I think that's right, because I think you start getting blasé and thinking, oh, I can do this. I've got all that money. I can do this and I can do that. And which actually, all you need is the core stuff to work out, you know?
Yeah. If you've got more equipment, it just takes more time to do more stuff. And, you know, I think we achieved a hell of a lot. I mean, it flew by for me. First feature, I was thinking, oh, my God, here we go. Into a feature. I wasn't that into it. I'd done dailies on features from, you know, when I was doing motion control and stuff. And you used to think, when we did the Bond films, you sit around for days. What are we doing here? Why is no one moving? Everything's taking forever. And those 33 days flew by. When it was wrapped, I was like, oh my God, I could keep going if you wanted to. Yeah. We'd done it all, but it was just like over in a flash. And I was
it was.
it wasn't Big Brother. It was actually quite a laugh, and we got a lot done. And it was really, really good filmmaking.
And there was good humour, wasn't there? I mean, there was a good vibe on the set. Very good vibe on the set.
Considering you didn't know anyone in the crew, it was amazing.
No.
Yeah, I was going to ask. So it's because it sounds like lots of people came together quite quickly. So was it just good luck, or do you think actually if you've got someone good at the helm, then the right people just seem to be hired? Because sometimes that just works, but it's we all know that we don't always have the luxury of getting everyone we've worked before and we know we're going to work well with.
I think it comes down to luck. I mean, literally, I'm on this job now. I've not worked only one focus puller I've worked with before. No one else on this crew do I know. But generally, everyone's quite good humoured. But let's see how they all feel in 6 weeks' time.
Yeah.
It always comes from the top, though, and Duncan and Stuart Finnegan, and Gavin Rothery, they put in a lot of prep, and they were really passionate about the project before any of us arrived. So, in lots of ways, it was really far along the road before any of us got started.
Yeah, true.
If often we now, especially when we're talking earlier about in our little prep for this about how busy the industry is at the moment, there's you often get sort of unfinished scripts, and you're being interviewed for things that aren't ready, and but that was ready. They were ready, so they would have had their instincts would have been really good for who were the right people to bring in, because they knew the piece so well before they'd been at it for a few years before it got anywhere near crewing up.
Yeah, It also helps with their demeanour, though. It depends how they are. It depends how the director is, how all the HODs are. If you've got one bad apple in there or one egotistical, well, for what I don't want to swear on it, but you get one egotistical sod who's just going to put the fly in the ointment, it can go so wrong. If you've got the right people, you can cope with all of that. You can just get it done.
Yeah, absolutely. So Tony, I know you've got to go, so if you do need to go, feel free to
I'm okay
sign out.
I'm all right. Okay. I'm fine for the moment. Yeah, don't worry. Okay.
Well, and so did you know when shooting it that it was going to be as good as it is? Is the question.
I don't think I didn't think. I mean, I didn't think it would be as successful as it has been. I mean, I've never worked on a film that's been so well thought about than The Moon, and everybody is so kind of glowing about it and has an affection for it. I think it's just because it's a really clever idea. I mean, it's a really clever idea, and it kind of works. All the elements work, and it was great, good fun to do, good, enjoyable to do.
I think you never know. You never ever know.
No, you don't. Yeah,
we all just do our bit and hand it in and do the best you can with your own department and your own piece, and we all do that, and then we just kind of deliver, and then you walk away and see what you don't. The edit can be so surprising.
Yeah,
but I think all of us have worked on some stinkers. I mean, on movies, you think, why have I ever taken this on? I mean, I just did a thing last year. A Netflix thing. No, actually, it was Sky thing called Twist, which is an Oliver Twist, modern day Oliver Twist. It was so hard. It was so tough. And there was, as Gary says, there were a few flies in the ointment that kind of spoiled it. But you just have to get on with it and get through it the best way you can. But we've all been down that road.
Yeah, you can absolutely never tell if you've got ill manners. I mean, that was a film I did with Ben Drew for like almost, a fifth of what Moon cost, and that was not that long after. Not everyone's cup of tea, but some people absolutely love it. You can just never tell.
No, you can't.
This one, bits and pieces. You don't take the job thinking, well, this is a load of old rubbish, I'll just take the money and run. I don't do that. It's not for me, definitely. I don't want to speak for everyone, but I don't think you guys would take the job thinking it's a load of old rubbish, but it'll pay the bills. I think you take the best job because you like the project, you like the idea of the script, and you give it your all. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time away. And what's the point if no one's going to watch it or it doesn't do any good? You knock out a nice film. I mean, I've done some work recently. Everyone goes, yeah, it looks nice. But what the hell is it about? I haven't got a clue what's going on. It's rubbish. And you go, yeah. The bit I said, it looks nice. That's great. But that doesn't help me if no one ever watches it because it looks nice, but no one ever sees it.
But it's always the same old story. I mean, you know, for everything we all do, you know, we put our heart and souls into it. But if it's a lousy script, forget it. You know, it's a complete and total waste of time, you know, because that's what it is. It's the story. It's nothing more, nothing less. And all we do is make it look good. But if the story sucks, all it's going to do is be, you know, not very good. Very good.
Well, more often than not, it comes down to the editing, Tony. You know, you wouldn't take the job if you read it. This is absolute dross. And I've done a couple of last year. But big budget. Yeah. It's great. You read it and go, it's absolute rubbish. Why am I going to waste my time doing it? No.
It doesn't do you any good.
No, it doesn't do anyone any good.
No.
No, we've had a question come actually. It's for Jane. So it's from so it's interesting actually. It's from I'll put it up on the screen. So it's we run some 48-hour film challenges to get people trying, and actually it's really pertinent to what you've just said, because actually a 48-hour film challenge is all about the story. You're not going to have, you know, you're probably not going to have all the resources there. You're probably you know, not going to have the right actors and whatever else, but it's a great exercise in story and coming up with something from a brief really quickly and trying to tell it in an economical way. And so Adrian is one of our 48-hour film challenge winner of winners. So he's asked Jane if you have a recipe book for creative ideas for costumes, kind of looks, when kind of none are presented as part of a brief. I'm not entirely sure what he means by recipe book, but I'm assuming that something in your back pocket when people give you nothing.
No, you've only got your instincts. So nothing is presented as part of the brief. I'm given the script and I come back with my response to it, using my instincts from reading the script, and offer that up visually, maybe with some research or some images. You know, and I've been talking to the early days and having an early conversation. So no, all I've got is my own aesthetic and my responses, emotional responses, and my instinct for what it feels like when I read it. So no, I don't. That I've just got my brain, my life, everything that's happened to me. I don't know, just the stuff that makes me feel what I feel when I read it. And the writing, you know, how good the writing is, and if it's poor writing and there's nothing in there, then, and if I find it's a struggle, it's usually because it maybe doesn't add up or something in the script. But.
Well, I mean, we talked, I think Gary was mentioning some of the kind of references that they were talking about kind of earlier. I mean, Tony, actually, was it all chat about references and other kind of aesthetics when you came to this, or actually? I think maybe you said before it was all based around kind of a shape of a key. I mean, is it? I'm always worried that I have no library of references to come to these things with. And again, is it all about instincts?
I think it is. I mean, it's that old, you know, that old little flash you get. You can think, oh, yeah, that's the way. I always take it with me anyway. It's usually the first thing you think of is the one you end up with. So you have this idea that you think, yeah, and then you kick it around and toss it around, but you always come back to the original idea. Well, I do anyway. And I mean, the thing about it is, I came on, and as same with Gary. I mean, it was the guys had been on it for about 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years, and they were like a little tight knit unit. You know, it was like Gavin and Duncan. I don't think Stuart was. It was just the two of them, I think, and they'd been working on it, and they just wanted to give it that kind of English feel, if you will. An English sci-fi picture was the thing. So our references were old sort of 60s sci-fi movies. I mean, and as Gary said, you know, things like Alien wasn't 60s, but it was trying to get that kind of feel. I sort of took it as being, I thought 2001 was a nearer kind of look that they wanted. But
yeah, we went that way.
We did go that way because the original.
You remember early on, when it was very early on, it was nearly all white in there. If you remember,
that's right.
Yeah. Went for the orange and the grey to sort of help it not be so 2001.
Because I remember talking to Duncan, and we were at Shepperton, and I don't know if in the sort of offices in Shepperton, they've got little offices and they got corridors, and I'd gone up to see him, and he dragged me outside. He said, he said, I think the colour of the set should be this colour, which is the colour of the corridors in Shepperton, which is a sort of kind of pasty, creamy kind of color. It was like, you know, just off white, which I think obviously helped Gary, because white's a killer.
Just talking about. Oh, sorry.
No,
Were you going to say something, Dan?
No, not at all.
Just
Nothing
with
relevant.
the references that we were looking at, I'd looked at the same stuff as Tony. You know, we're looking at silent running and things. I'd had similar conversations with Duncan, but a friend of mine sent me an essay somebody had written about the costumes in Moon, and it was really good, but it wasn't quite where I was coming from. And they'd sort of said, that they really liked that I'd referenced Harry Dean Stanton in Aliens by using the Hawaiian shirt, you know, in a couple of scenes, but it wasn't coming from there. It was coming because Sam Rockwell had said to me that he was basing the two Sams on Midnight Cowboy. And so when he got back into the chamber at the end and he had on the Hawaiian shirt with a buttoned up neck, we sort of did that. Like, it was more like Ratso dying on the bus down to Florida at the end of Midnight Cowboy. That's why that was our reference with, you know, we were doing that sort of behind the scenes. There was another sort of layer, but it kind of, because we had something that we were pinning it on, I suppose, throughout, that he kept going back to emotionally, that I was kind of working with him quietly on, that was nothing to do with sci-fi. It was about, you know, the emotions that he was tapping into. But it obviously still worked for the viewer, and they were still sort of taking it as a sci-fi reference, but it was a 70s film reference, but it wasn't, you know, it wasn't sci-fi, but it was.
I mean, yeah, that's a really interesting one, isn't it? Like, has anyone else had anyone read, you know, very profound things into their work that just wasn't there, or references, or
No, can't think of one.
No, but you know, well, I've got two more questions. One is there like a favourite moment from Moon, or a favourite, I don't know, instance, thing? Have each of you have got something that is kind of either your you know, best moment on set, or something that you did that you just thought, oh, that's Moon for me?
Yeah. I think, I mean, I got a buzz from actually seeing stills of the long shots, because it kind of, in the actual wide shots of the set, and that was for me a really good vibe. It was like, I thought, yeah, this works, it's working, you know. And I guess also the other thing I was quite chuffed about, as I said, the perspective set, that it worked. I was terrified it wasn't going to work, but fortunately it did work. You know, but that was me. Gary?
I'm gonna go back and try and spot that mag light.
Yeah, you hopefully you won't spot it. For me, I think the maddest moment was cutting Sam Rockwell's hair with a vacuum cleaner.
Oh yeah,
that was quite good fun, and I thought very brave, because literally Duncan had found this gadget, you know, almost like a Ronco that used to be back in the day. Ronco hairdo, bob, and he found this thing either on eBay or some other similar thing at the time, that attached to a Hoover that obviously sucked the hair up in the air, and then it had some blades, and the Hoover, the suction turned the blades like a head mower, and we literally cut Sam Rockwell's hair off live on as we filmed it.
But I don't know if you know, but the props guys were supposed to take the blades out, but they didn't.
Oh, I didn't realise that.
That wasn't supposed to happen.
Drop a minute.
Yeah, and now it's been recorded.
The trouble is, I think it was one of those things that I went, oh dear, we should have taken those out. Hair flying off in all directions. I mean, it wasn't. I mean, those things weren't that great anyway.
Yeah. Apart from perspective set, I like the stuff in the Rover where we discovered the other stand. That was quite a cool little moment, actually, for me.
Yeah,
I quite liked that.
One bit I really liked in the film was where, I don't know if was when Sam was ringing home on that, you know, he'd gone out of the area, and he got so emotional in there. You know, and that line, I just want to go home. I don't think that was even scripted. I think he put that in, didn't he? I think.
I can't remember, but it was quite a tearjerker. I remember watching it when we watched the cut, and thought, oh my God, it's quite emotional. But there there was also the bit when Sam discovers he's a drone and starts kicking off to Gertie, and he just went off and did a massive improv. And of course, obviously we were shooting on film, and he just kept going and kept going. And at one point, he literally went for the whole roll, and I rolled out, and I was like, oh, now what am I going to do? And he kept going, and I was like, just slowly whispered that we rolled out, and Sam was not going to stop him, let him go for it. But luckily, he didn't go too much longer. He went, how was that? And I was like, he just switched it off like that. It was like, done all this emotion, and then just switched it off. So how was that? I'm like, yeah, great. Cut, everyone.
Yeah.
But the funny thing was when he was in the Rover getting all emotional, and he started smashing things. You remember? He was bashing the set, and he put his fist through one of the monitors, and he came up to me and said, "I'm really sorry about the monitor." I said, he said, "It was so good. Don't worry about it. we got good stuff. So don't worry about it."
It was one very.
He was amazing. He was fantastic.
Yeah,
he was.
No,
it was an amazing, very unprofessional moment for me when we were in the Rover on the gimbal filming him, and my phone went off, and I hadn't switched it to mute.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember.
And it was, and Sam just went, "Hey, there's an ice cream van out here." Dukes of Hazzard ringtone that's always da 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 da, and it just went off full pelt. I was like, "Oh no!"
It's your worst moment, isn't it?
It was funny. It was hilarious.
What about Ewan and Jane? Do you have a kind of a favourite moment, favourite memory?
Oh, well, my favorite. I've got to thank Tony for building a set in such a way that it was all crammed in, but not many people knew that there was a little space between probably the infirmary, I think it's called the infirmary, and one of the tunnels. There was this space that you couldn't get to unless you climbed onto the roof of the set. And so thankfully, me and the Sparks could climb in there now and again and have a little kip. That was our little secret space.
It's all coming out now.
It is. I think 10 years on, it's fine to mention that.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if anyone has said that film was brilliant, apart from the Sparks, clearly we're having sleeps, then, you shouldn't bring it up. But, as it was.
We were well rested. That's the main thing.
Jane, what about you?
I think I've just got really warm memories of the crew and the whole team, but Sam Rockwell's really my favourite, my absolute favourite. My door buzzer's going. My son's just come. I'm going to just go and let him in.
Yes, I mean I've talked on a bit longer than I meant to.
I need to mute myself. Oh.
I'm just going to do if you don't mind, if everyone has got 3 more minutes. I'm just we do a lot of work with young people who are getting into the film industry. How on earth did you each, in a really small way, really quick one, how did you each get into the industry? Did you all decide at 12 you were going to work in film, or how did it come about? Let's go Tony first.
I left school. Not all I wanted to do was draw. All I wanted to do was art. But I had this kind of thought I'd wanted to do graphics, which I'm not very good at. But and I didn't have a clue. And someone said, "Well, go down, go and work with a commercials company." So somehow I got into a commercial company as a runner, and just used to kind of run around Soho with cans of reels of film and letters and checkbooks to take to the bank and all that kind of stuff. And from there on, you meet people and it kind of spreads. And I got involved with the company I worked for. There was a time when they had art departments, and I got involved with one of the art directors who took me kind of under his wing, and I just started in the art department, and that was it. I was on the road, on the roll. Okay.
Fabulous. Gary, how about you?
I was also a runner at 16. Couldn't wait to get out of school before I got expelled. I left, went running, literally same thing, cans around Soho, getting people sandwiches, did the whole, runner stuff. And then I worked in a small film optical company called Jeff Axler Associates, which was there were two decent commercials, film optical houses, which is film opticals is, what film opticals are, yeah. It's before the advent of inkjet pens, stuff was done with multiple passes on film in optical printers and or similar. So there was two places to go. It was either in the script planning the jobs or in the camera department. So I went in there. Luckily for me, one of the trainees had tremendous BO and kept turning up late. So they got rid of him, and I had his job, and then that was the rest is history.
Yeah, we tell a lot of young people this. Be there, turn up early, be keen, be helpful. You'll move up. Ewan, how about you?
Well, I'd started off in submarines. I was engineering and electrical, but I don't know if you remember in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a show called Faking It, where they took random people from one profession and trained them in a few weeks to blag their way into another profession. And so I just did my own version of that. I just suddenly wanted to be in film one day, and my dad was in film, worked on 2001. But I never followed in his footsteps, and I decided I would. And so, there was websites like Shooting People where you could go and work for free on a project, and I just started doing that. And clearly, having a background in engineering and electricals and an interest in photography, you can make it work.
Amazing. Yeah, and last but not least, Jane, how did you get into costume?
I didn't know you could be a costume designer till I was 22. So I left school when I was 16 as well, and then I did a foundation art year, but I didn't know what to do with it. I'd always wanted to do I was good at art, English, and history, but I hadn't found out what to do with it. And I'd had a lifelong interest in historical clothing, actually, because I'd gone to the V&A when I was 10 with my mum and just loved the sort of costume exhibition. But it wasn't on, my family's, we just didn't know you could be a costume designer. It didn't enter anybody's head. And I moved to London with my friends who had graduated from art school. And I was watching a TV program called The Clothes Show in 1989. And I was 22, and there was a little insert about the costume design students at Wimbledon Art School. And I was like, what, that's amazing. I want to do that. That's exactly what I want to do with myself. And so I went with my friend, Sarah Monroe, who now runs the Baltic Gallery. And she said, come on, let's go, I'll come with you. And we went down and visited Wimbledon. And I sort of managed to get an interview, a late interview. I was a late applicant, and I went on the waiting list, but I got in that summer. And then just kind of through that, I think I got my first job, which was touring theatre, and then just carried on kind of just working my way through the department.
And this is why I think these things are so important, because, we hope that we can find people before they're 22 who have talent by showing them these jobs exist. So I'll leave it there. But thank you very much, everybody, because I could talk to you all night, but we won't do that. But yeah, thank you for donating your time, because hopefully it just shows people the breadth of things they can do and how they might get into the film industry. And hopefully that means we have an even stronger film industry than we already have in the future. But yeah, thank you very much, guys. I will let you all go. Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, slowly but seamlessly done there. But thank you very much, everybody, for joining us for what has been an epic day of I don't know how many hours of live streaming, Zooms and Q&As and all that jazz. But we've got some more on Sunday the 16th right through to Wednesday the 19th, short films, feature films, all sorts of things. So please join us and let us know what you have enjoyed by tweeting us at Screen Northants or at NN Film Festival, or telling us on Facebook. Thanks. All right.